Our next presenter is Yoni, coming to us all the way from Tel Aviv, Israel. So it's late at night over there. We weren't even sure if he was going to actually be able to come on here because any moment now he and his wife are having their first child. So some exciting times for Yoni, but he's here to share some really cool stuff with you guys. You know, at the last in-person event we did in September, we did I asked everybody, I said, hey, what's something that you would like us to cover in future summits? And the two things that kept coming up over and over and over in the room were something around crypto or NFTs, which we actually have someone speaking on later. And how does that tie into e-commerce, into your Amazon business and stuff? And the other one was scaling. It's like, because a lot of people that are here are doing $1 million, 2 million, 5 million. They want to get to that 10 million, that 20 million, that 50, that 100 million level. And it's difficult. And a lot of people get stuck. It's very easy to get to $1 million in sales on Amazon. I mean, honestly, it's pretty easy. As long as you do some fundamental basic stuff right and have a little bit of money, it's not hard. But where it does get hard is once you get to that 10, 25, 50, it's a totally different mindset. And a lot of entrepreneurs they don't know what to do and they get stuck. So they either sell the company to an aggregator or because they can't take it to that next level, or they hire someone and sometimes they get screwed. Sometimes it works out. But that's what Yoni does. Yoni is a master at helping companies scale. And what do we do? Well, who should I hire next? When I get to 10 million, should I hire bookkeeping? Should I hire a CEO? Should I hire an operations guy for shipping? I don't know. Where should I start? How should I do this? And that's what Yoni is going to be talking about and sharing with you today. Some really actionable stuff on what you've got to think about and what you need to do to really take your business from you and your wife or you and your kids or you and a couple guys in a garage to 100 people, 200 people or more. So Yoni, welcome. I'm super excited to have you here. I know you got a great presentation ready to go. So I'm going to turn this over to you. If you want to go ahead and share your slides, the stage will be all yours.
For sure. Kevin, you haven't even seen my slides. So how do you know it's a great presentation? You have too much confidence in me, mate. All right. Well, I won't hold up a wad of cash, but I did take this very seriously, and the objective is always how to create value and give back. And so presentation I'm going to take you through today is what I'm calling growth by design. And it's like Kevin pointed out, how can you actually take it to the next level without losing yourself in the process? So what if I told you you could actually grow your business to 8 figures and beyond, having less stress than you have today? And I don't particularly love the figure rating of 7, 8, 10, 8 million figures, but that is just what people rate it as. So I'm going to follow suit. But what if I told you that you could be more passionate about your business or your role in it than you ever have been today, even with the compounding complexities, and that you could love what you do almost every single day of your life in work? And so that's what I want to cover today, guys. By the end of this presentation, I'm not going to solve these problems for you, but I'm definitely going to open your eyes as to what you should be thinking in each critical stage. And before I jump into that, and this is not a humble brag by any stretch of the imagination, I just need to build the credibility to actually state why I should be giving you any of this advice. So I'm the co-founder. Lippy and I co-founded Escala and Multiply Me. Multiply Me is a staffing business focused on talent out of the Philippines, and Escala is a process improvement management consulting practice where we build systems for e-commerce businesses. So we bootstrapped these businesses with just barely 6 figures 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago. Today, we've grown to more than 250 full-time people on payroll, and that number will double by the end of the year. We have 8 in our senior leadership team, and that number is going to be important as we get deeper into this. We hire 30 plus people every single month, new competencies every other month, so risk and compliance and things that you never really realized you would know. And a third business, a joint venture that I'm really excited about and our partners are really excited about, but that'll come not in this presentation, but in the coming weeks and months. But super excited, and being able to achieve all of this, honestly, you know, as Kevin said, I'm an expecting father, and I'm still able to put in the time to build this for the first time for you guys today and love every minute of it. So how it started, guys, you know, realistically, when you're starting any business, you do so, whether it's from the side hustle or whether it's getting onto Amazon or a service-based business, you have more energy and more excitement. You're passionate about what it is you are trying to create. And we're all there. I remember early stages of the business, I could work 20 hours without getting out of my chair and be ready to get up the next day. But I think what we like to call the Amazon seller hero journey is that, you know, there's a cute little hamster and you experience that initial success, right? You sell that first product, you identify the product or the brand that you're looking to grow up into, and you launch your first few SKUs and you get some success, and it's $1,000 in the first month, and then $10,000 a month, and $30,000, and and you continue to grow, and you start to have that initial success where you'll either quit your day job and you'll transition to that full-time accelerated growth, or maybe you already went in there with those intentions to start with. But ultimately, where many people get to is they become a victim of their own success, and they find themselves on the Amazon hamster wheel, as we call it. So there's simply too much to do, and I can't get off of this track. If I let go of any one aspect of the business, before I know it, things are going to fall apart. And it's a very stressful place to be. And so the question is, what now? What can I actually do? So the first option, which I wouldn't recommend this for anyone, but it's implode, right? This is way too hard for me. I don't have any time to go and do all the things. I'm not looking after myself, my health, my wellness, my family, my friends. I've lost myself in the business and I'm stuck and I'm going to implode. The next option is to sell the company, which is, becoming increasingly attractive. No one on this call is investing this amount of time or money to really realize that, the market is hot to sell. But the question that any investment bank will tell you is, what is the right time to sell? If you're selling under duress because you are about to implode, then you're not making that decision rationally from a place of, is this the best decision to me? You might not have thought through as to, what are my next steps? What does life look like post-sale? So really, this presentation is all about how you can make conscious decisions to delegate and elevate, and really understand how you can be the best version of yourself working in a that works for you. So I'm sure many of you are familiar with the Peter Principle, but the Peter Principle effectively says that people will be promoted until a level of incompetence. And I'm actually here to challenge that idea. I don't believe in the Peter Principle. I think that if you're investing the time to listen to each of these presentations and you're sat here right now, then you're already in a top percentile of people that are committed to their personal growth and their development. And if you have even an iota of skill and you have this level of commitment to learn and grow, I read 20, 30 books a year trying to upskill myself. I'm part of masterminds. I'm part of events like this regularly. And my objective is always, how do I become the best version of myself? How can I learn and grow? And if you have the will for the skill, right? This is the skill will matrix, which is probably a little bit less known than the Peter Principle. But if you have a will for the skill and you have the ability to effectively delegate, then there is no ceiling as to how far you can take it. If you're committed to and understand who you are, then, the possibilities are absolutely endless. So how do you actually approach this, right? So the first step is actually understanding what the best version of you looks like. I know this sounds maybe a little bit silly, but the reality is, who are you? How do you perform well? What are the things that you enjoy doing? Where does your time go? What actually happens? What do you want to be when you grow up? What does that look like? So taking the first step in understanding who you are is critical and fundamental to really building any sort of plan to getting to 8, 9 figures and beyond. So the way I like to approach it is I audit my calendar. So this is, a romanticized version of my calendar. It's taken from it. But what I do is I color code my calendar and I break down my 40-hour week, or, for a lot of you, it's probably more than that. I try and stay within those realms, but I look at how much time. So structuring it, and this will be different for everyone. But for me personally, I like to invest, 30% of my time on new opportunities, 30% of my time on new business, and 30% on internal meetings and working with the team and nurturing our people, maybe even a little bit more. And then the last is doing deep work, working on presentations like this are the things that really fill me up. I want to be able to give back and add value. And so taking that audit and really looking deep into understanding, how have I invested my time? Was it valuable? Was it meaningful? And did it move the needle? Because where you then need to go as you're going through this, trying to understand yourself and what the best version of yourself is starting to actually say no to things. So this is probably one of the hardest. It's very common to say yes to every opportunity, every event, everything that's going on. But if you're on this call right now, any one of these things, from reviewing what your BSR rankings are, your keyword research, to first round interviews, if you have already middle management or a number of people or layers below you, opportunities or partnership calls, unless that's your core function, there's absolutely no reason why you should be investing your time in there. And I won't get on any of these things anymore. For a new SaaS tool, I'll send my assistant. She can do the hard yards in understanding it. So understanding how to say no, looking at your calendar and understand where valuable time is, and taking that stock take is just the first step in that understanding. I love this quote: a problem well stated is a problem half solved. So when it comes to solving the problem of what is the best version of you, what you really need to understand once you've got past the auditing of how you spend your time is, what do you actually want to be doing? How do you want to be investing your time? And how can you be working on things that you actually give a shit about? I think that nothing is more important, whether you're the founder or a key personnel or an executive or just anyone in any team at any level. You really need to have a passion for what you're doing, because the fastest way to find burnout is to work on things that simply are not in your wheelhouse. If you had me sitting on financial meetings every single day of the week, I'd probably, I'd neck myself. There's just no way that is something that is conducive. And I would say as well, if you're sitting here and you're not taking breaks and you're not taking time away, the fastest way to dishearten your team is to show up half. So really prioritize yourself as well while you're going through this journey, because burnout isn't good for anyone. So going through it and taking it back here, what I've really outlined is you're getting a picture of who you are and how you invest your time, and you're really thinking deeply as to, what does it look like? What does my future state look like? For me, I come from a creative advertising background. I love everything that relates to growth and marketing. And so I gravitate toward that. And so that's where I put all of my focus and attention. Putting things like this together is really fun for me. So I do it. And everything else, I delegate and I elevate, and I find better people than me. So before we jump into what that looks like, the next step is really having others understand how to get the best version of you. This is something that we're actually doing now with our entire senior leadership team, and it will permeate through. So it's building a guide to working with you. Now, going back, it's all about understanding yourself, and understanding yourself also means how you communicate this to others. So in this doc, and I'm actually going to share it with you guys. So Kevin, I'll probably enter these as my hacks to give away a lot of free collateral here, but operating approach. So for me, I look at things like, I have regular one-on-one meetings with my team. I think it's the most valuable meeting, and I'll talk about that in a little bit in a second. We have regular cadences, sales meetings. Like, this is how we run the operation, and that's my approach. Communication, examples of that. If you're going to have me on a project, brief me in early, get my feedback at the start, come with a briefing, book me in for a call, even 15 minutes, walk me through it. Let's get alignment and let's drive to a centralized point where we both are in agreement. What's your management style? So understanding, for me, I'm not a micromanager. I'm very hands off. I like to build objectives and build the mission, the outcomes and the attributes and the expectations, and let people run with it. If yours is different, of course, you build it the way that it works for you. And then lastly is personal preferences. So anything that relates to how you are, as a human, I think is really valuable. The whole objective of this guide is, you get a deeper sense of self as well. And going through my one that I'll share with you, it'll be a really helpful guide. What it actually looks like is this. So here's an example of two of the areas. So here, bi-weekly or weekly one-on-ones, we try to keep it time consistent, talking about how I'm hands off. I'm not a micromanager. This is actually sort of the length of the entire deck that I'm going to share with you. But ultimately, if you can build this out, if you build out this information and understand yourself, and from understanding yourself, you can gift this to anyone that comes is looking to work with you, the time it will take to build a cohesive relationship is halved, if that. I mean, a lot of people won't even get to this. So super fundamental in terms of how you can effectively get to really understanding yourself, to really understanding where your team needs to be. The next step is creating systems that work for you. Now, as I mentioned early on, Escala is a process improvement management consulting practice. What we do is we build systems for serious e-commerce businesses. And so over the next couple of slides, I just want to talk to you a little bit about how you can approach building systems that work for you. So for us, systems are the combination of people, process, and technology harmoniously brought together to building a system. And so when we go through this process of a system, understanding now that we understand through this process who we are, we understand where we want to get to, how we're investing our time, and how people can work with us. Now what we need to do is build this system, a system, as we define it, a system that works for you. For a lot of Amazon sellers, when we talk about SOPs to them, they straight away drop technology. Technology is typically what they look at, and what delivery looks like. But an effective SOP needs to focus not just on the technology, but it needs to focus on the process and the people. So a clear example here is click here to download the keyword search term report inside of Helium 10. Typical how people will write SOPs, they'll jump into it. There'll be whether it's you or someone in your team delivering, and they'll ultimately walk their way through all the steps they need to take in what's going on. Now, if they'd just taken a second to incorporate the people and the process component, things would really change. So same instructions. All I've changed here is every Monday, the data analyst, so process, people, download the key search term reports by clicking here inside of Helium 10. Technology. So when you connect those three, and this is the simplest form of it, all of a sudden you have a baseline system that can ultimately help you scale, because now you've removed you as the potential linchpin or the individual who's created it, who needs to define. You can build a backup for that data analyst. I mean, it is all of a sudden a lot more versatile. And this is a little bit as to what our process mapping process looks like. So we have 5 layers, right? With our core processes and our process groups, you can see on the left-hand side, that's how we map out what's happening at the high level of a business. We move into the sub-processes. So the sub-processes effectively are each one of these boxes will institute one of these sub-processes, which will dictate who the individual is, what they're actually delivering on, and the decision matrices against it. And then lastly is the step-by-step working instructions, where one of these numbered icons will align with what the step is, who performed it, who the backup is, photos, videos, etc. And so just to hold on this for a second, when you're building out your system, your perfect system, it doesn't need to look like this. It doesn't need to be at this level. I know a guy who can help you with that, but ultimately what you should be looking at is taking what we call a top-down approach. So instead of simply having someone in your PPC team build out how to run PPC campaigns, think through first at a high level, how does every department interact inside the business? So, simply put, inside of an Amazon business, you'll typically see, a product function, product development function, a marketing function, or a brand management function. You'll have your customer support, and you'll have your marketing function. So you'll go through that entire process, and your inventory management. So that's how you'd link all the core processes or the process groups, and then you'd start to work your way down, because where it becomes relevant is, for example, listing creation. It's a great, or launch new product, as I can see right in front here. There's lots of moving parts when you're looking to launch a product. You're dealing with supply chain, listing creation, keyword research, PPC management. You're dealing with creative, EBC, A+ content. I mean, The list goes on. So if you in a very narrow focus only look at each of the steps, you would miss all of the different moving parts from your graphic designer, whether in-house or a resource, or whether it's you, to inventory, what's actually happening there. So just taking that top-down approach and working through it is going to be extremely valuable into understanding what's actually happening in your business. So we've gone through 3 of the 4 stages to date here. We've gone through understanding yourself. From understanding yourself, how do people work with you? It's building a system. And I think one of the really key things that I didn't mention about the system is when you build real process and real systems, what you're also doing is you're protecting yourself from risk of having a key linchpin leaving the business and leaving the operation. While people are always going to be the most important thing in any business, I don't care what you tell me, you could have the best system in the world, but without the right people driving it, everything falls down. Ultimately, this protects you and helps with your business continuity plan on top of enabling you to scale. So the last and final step that I have for you here is delegate and elevate. So when you delegate tasks, you create followers, but when you delegate authority, you create leaders. And when we talk about creating leaders, our focus inside of our business today is how do we build the leaders of tomorrow today? How do we invest as much as humanly possible for us to actively and consciously upskill our entire team so that they can be the very best that they can be? We want to build that talent density to a level that, it explodes. And quite frankly, I'm just a very small piece of the entire puzzle of what's going on here. I have such a talented team and co-founder around me that, I feel very fortunate to go through this. But I think that it all comes down to having that ability to actually focus on your people. So it's also helpful that the other business that we have is a staffing business where we find top talent. So I can talk in a little bit more detail here as well to give you some deeper insights around what this looks like. I have a whole presentation on this slide alone, but ultimately, once you have that system, now is when you have to start building that team, because you're not going to be the individual contributor. And, I can't see anyone's faces, but I'd love to ask the question, when was the last time you as an Amazon owner really totally switched off from your business? When could you take off a week or 2 weeks? When did you take off a month? I'd probably see very few hands built up or hands up right now. So building your team, the way we look at it is that before everything else, before going into it, your objective should always be in your business, even when you're making any business decision, is defining what success looks like before you step into it. So a lot of people will typically just jump in and separate what does an Amazon account manager look like, or brand manager, or graphic designer, or whatever it might look like. We actually have all of that information. We're building a portal that will actually give you all that stuff for free. So a couple of months post Prosper, you guys will get it. But ultimately, what you need to do is define what is mission critical. So forget the job description at this point. What does success look like if this person you bring on, is actually successful? So defining the mission. And the mission, let's give the example of a PPC manager. The mission is to maintain or exceed 20% ACosts for every new product launch, whatever it might be. I'm trying to keep it simple. That is what success looks like. And then on the back of that, what are the outcomes? What does this individual need to achieve in order for that mission to be successful? And then ultimately what we're looking for are the attributes. So what historic skill sets or competencies does this person need to have in order to be able to achieve these outcomes? So that might be, an outcome might be, effectively downloading and auditing the PPC reports, understanding, what key search term phrases need to be focused in or removed. Ultimately, only on the back of this will you be able to build the job description. And I think this is a really critical thing for you guys to be thinking about, is that, we place 30 plus people every single week and it continues to grow. A lot of people come to us and say, hey, I've got my perfect job description, 5 years, 10 years of Amazon experience. You're dreaming, has worked in an aggregator, this, that, and the other, etc. Where really what they needed to understand is, what does success look like? Everything else is just white noise trying to beef up a job description. So while you go through this, consistency is always key. And, going back to the whole systems focus, you should be asking the same questions to every single candidate. And those questions should be based off of a scorecard. And that scorecard, I'll also enter another hack in for you. I'm going to share with you our template for how to build missions, outcomes, and attributes to build the job description. And ultimately, that is what you should be scoring against. You should be ultimately looking at it and saying, right, what is my rating 1 through 10, A through F, around each of the different questions that are asked that relate to the competencies and the attributes and the outcomes, and marking against it. You're not going to remember a week ago what that interview looked like, or 2 hours ago, depending on how busy you are. And I think it's always dangerous walking in without a game plan. And so to come in and interview one candidate in one light and another in another, it's not, you're doing yourself a disservice investing your time without a real practice in place. The next is having an actual process through this. So defining the stages. This is critical for a few reasons. I'd say there's no faster way to have someone be the biggest anti-brand ambassador, tarnishing your brand reputation, than not having a defined process. So explaining to them, what does the timing look like? When are you going to get feedback? What is feedback going to look like? And it can be negative feedback. There's literally thousands of people that we vet every single month, and 99% of them don't get a job. And that's okay, because we manage expectations and we help understand them that if a relevant opportunity is there and they're a right fit for it, then sure, they're in our active pool and we'll tap you on the shoulder. But ultimately, you need to define to them and to you guys internally what that process looks like. And then I cannot stress this enough. Too many people ignore this, but if you do not do reference checks, you are ultimately giving up such a huge advantage, because this is when you can ask questions to someone that is not the individual that's trying to sell them. I'd even say, taking it one step further, if you can get additional references from the references, then that's a really smart way to have someone who's even further removed. If it's someone who's been on a similar project or doesn't have the clarity or visibility, or if it's a friend or a personal reference, you really need to understand what it's like to work with this person, because ultimately they're trying to put their best foot forward, and there's nothing more costly than making a wrong hiring mistake. The average cost of making a hiring mistake is typically 15 times or more of the base salary of that individual. So put that in perspective. If you were to hire someone at $100,000 a year, ultimately it's a $1.5 million mistake in lost lost productivity, in hard costs related to the investment itself, and just the sheer impact. So do your diligence around who you're bringing into your organization, because it can absolutely backfire. And no one gets it right all the time, of course. I do not go at 100%, and I've failed my way forward the entire way. But last thing this is particularly relevant for anyone who's an Amazon and e-commerce seller, is that you sell the absolute shit out of your opportunity for them, making sure that it's aligned with the actual individual's best interests. So it's an employee's market. There's a skill shortage of somewhere between 50 and 100,000 people in the US alone that relate to e-commerce and Amazon roles. That's just the US, right? Now, if you are not putting your best foot forward in building the mission, getting them motivated about the vision of the business, and doing your responsibility as senior leadership, an executive, a founder, CEO, whatever your position is in building out your team, then you're doing yourself a disservice. And if you don't have the belief, then maybe you should consider, what it is you're doing. But if you have the belief, as I do, in what we're doing, then that should be to your advantage. So really, if you take nothing from the entire presentation, this is absolutely critical in getting things right. I'd say the next most important thing is people management, right? So now that we've effectively moved into the stage of building out this team, it's how do we manage them? So for me, the cardinal sin is to miss your regular one-on-ones. If you're not having them, they don't have to be 5 hours long. They should be 30 minutes or an hour. It can be every week or every other week, depending on what that cadence looks like. But this is your direct line of communication with what's actually happening in the operation. It should be focused 90% of it on the team member that you are managing and not the other way around. This is about them sharing with you. And again, I cannot stress how quickly people can fall apart. And if you are suffering from high staff turnover rates and you don't have this going on, then there's a good chance that this might be a very simple fix for you that could totally change what your attention looks like. Having an executional framework, again, as you grow as a business, I would say once you're sort of north of 15, 20 people, I mean, for any business I would start in the future, this would be a non-negotiable at any stage. But some of you might be familiar with Traction, EOS, or OKRs, and 4DX is 4 disciplines of execution. So for us internally, our L10 meeting every week, which is a 90-minute meeting. So for those of you who don't know what EOS is, it's the entrepreneurial operating system, and it's a really baseline framework that we find really valuable. It's got its pros and cons, but the L10 meeting would be one of, if not the most valuable meeting that we have every week, where it's 30 minutes of updates where we're just talking about headlines, what's happening in every department they present. But the 60 minutes, the main focus is on a section called IDS, Identify, Discuss, Solve. That's where any problems that surface with senior leadership in that week is tabled there, and we deal with it there and then. Maybe there's a flow-on effect from it, but nothing gets missed. And for us, because we are as large as we are, we now have our leaders having L10s with their team. So we have several L10s going, sort of the parent L10. So I sit in one of these a week. And 4DX, again, as your operation grows and you talk about people management, having clearly defined strategy and what the mission of the business is in that direction becomes even more important, because I cannot get around to meeting every single person in the team or meeting them, sure, investing significant amounts of time with them. It's an impossibility. So we build our strategy for the next 12 months. It's really simple, 4DX. Again, you can read the book, 4 Disciplines of Strategy Execution, but you have a wildly important goal. It's one goal that everyone is driving towards. And then you have what's called your lead measures. These are 3 lead measures that actually help you achieve that goal. And you're probably noticing a little bit of consistency here, right? When you talk about the mission, outcomes, and attributes of a candidate, it's the same for the business, right? Getting everyone aligned, driving in the same direction becomes increasingly complex. And so these tools are the things that absolutely set you apart. And like I said before, failing forward, we've now just implemented what are called skip level meetings, where I'll sit in on meetings, or Lick will sit in on meetings with people inside of our, we've got a recruitment team of 20 full-time recruiters. So I'll sit in with the recruiters without their line manager, sourcing team, or the account management team, or the consulting team. The idea is, how do we get information and feedback so that there's nothing missed? It can be mismanagement, which historically has happened to us because we didn't have the visibility, but also everyone's trying to protect you as a key executive, as a key person in the business. So what you need to remember as well is sometimes they're going to look out for you almost too much. And so when I sit in with the account management team, I learn things that are applicable for the recruitment team, or things that the recruitment team are doing that is really applicable to the marketing, or vice versa. You never want to stop that cross-pollination, but it just becomes harder as you get larger. So things like skip level meetings, as you get to 50 people, let's say, I think becomes pretty imperative. And I just want to leave you guys with some examples here. So, I don't know what your one-on-one sessions look like, but if you just sit with me for a second and think, if you asked a question, like, if we could improve in any way, how would we do it? Asking an open-ended question like that in your one-on-one conversation with the person that reports into you, it's an open-ended question that helps them craft any insights that they want to need. Remember, 90% of it should be focused on their needs and their insights. What's the number one problem with our organization and why? Again, you want to empower people to have impact, and the people that are in the trenches delivering on the work are the ones that know what is going on, have a pulse of the business. Give them that opportunity to give you deeper insights. And what's not fun about working here? We want to create an environment whereby people come in and are excited and motivated about all it is that they do. So if you with this, ask yourself, do I love what I do every single day? Do I have clarity on who I am and how I should actually be functioning in the role that I'm performing? And am I living up to my potential? Am I able to actually achieve all of my dreams now that I know what they are? And that's it, guys. Thank you. Thank you. I will have some questions. These are from Ben Horowitz of Andreessen Horowitz. So took a few from there, but I'm going to send all these things into the hack section